I'm daydreaming about dragons. This is Judd doing it again. I want to talk about something that came up, I think, in one of the. It kind of came up in the last couple episodes, and that is the a skill that I think is really underrated in GMing. And I'm packing boxes, and I'm just about done. I'm kind of rounding up lots of little stuff in my move, and taking a break. Having a sip of water, and I'm going to talk to you about being the GM during character creation. Okay, here we go. Gulp. Let's do this. This is a critical time. You can save yourself a lot of time and energy by GMing well, being the GM, remembering that you're going to have to GM while your friends are making their characters. Okay, so it could be that they're making it doesn't matter. You could just say, like, even if it's totally random, you're seeing totally random things come up, right? One person's an elf, one person is a human ranger, and he's like, oh man, human ranger, I probably scouted out in the elf lands. Oh, did you asking questions. She's like, hey, did you two know each other? What do the elves think of human rangers? Are the rangers a military unit? Are they pledged to a baron or a king or a queen? It's a really good time to do some world creation. If you haven't done it already, you can add things to it. You can also give a prompt as people are creating characters, right? I wanted to run a dungeon that I liked in the one-page dungeon competition, and it was a monastery. So I said to the players, make the kind of character who would sneak into a monastery and steal stuff. Make that part of it. And so while they were making it, it's good because it gives them something to build off of. All right, this is the type of person who would steal from monks. And it allowed me to just start the adventure. Right? I don't have to deal with a long, huge argument about oh, should we steal from these monks? Well, this is the adventure. This is the one-page adventure I have. Let's start with that in mind. If you get halfway in and you're like, this is a bad idea, let's get out. Cool, bail. We can play with that. You still have choice. But let's make the initial character with that in mind. With the idea in mind that you're the type of person who would do whatever. Go into a dank hole and kill monsters for treasure. Or steal treasure from a monastery, okay? It's also a good time to just ask questions in general, right? Get an idea of where the players are coming from. Answer questions. It's cool when the players are like, hey, what are the laws around carrying a sword and walking around in full harness? That's a good question. What are the laws about, being able to carry around spells that can decimate a room full of people in an incantation? That's a good question. That's something you're going to have to think about. Maybe you have the answer, maybe you don't. But it's a good time to start making stuff up. It's a great time to start world building, just a little. You don't have to go, way in the beginning, the gods, they did spit and they created the ocean. You don't have to go all the way back. Don't have to go all the way back. And it's cool to be like, hey, I've been watching X, Y, and Z, so I'm really thinking about gods as constellations. So can we have the gods take on kind of an astronomical or astrological forms? Giving them something to riff off of. You don't have to create much. You just have to, it's cool to just, during character creation, sit around and talk about, hey, what is exciting you in sci-fi and fantasy right now? What is exciting you that you're reading about history? You're excited about the War of the Roses? Cool. You guys are a bunch of dungeon delvers, and you're the reason why you're doing this is because your farmlands have been ravaged, the dukes are at war, there's no other way to make a living other than going into dank holes, that monster-haunted dank holes that might be filled with treasure. That is a fine start. A fine start, I say. And that can all happen during character creation, right? If your friend is making a character on their own because they're coming to the game that night, and they're kind of a drop-in, give them a little bit to go on. Hey, We're in the middle of the dungeon, so make someone who would be down there alone. Come up with a little story why. And or maybe it's even more specific. Maybe it's like, hey, you know what? At the end of the last game, I mentioned that the kobolds had some prisoners. Why don't you be one of the prisoners? You know? And then that way they can make a character who has a little bit of, then that gives them something to do. Direct the character creation. Give it some motion. Give it some direction. And it will save you time later. I not much bores me more than DMing a game or GMing a game or storytelling or whatever you want to call it, and having a thing where the players get into a needless argument, especially if the game system has no way for me to resolve it. Right? As a GM, you've also got to safeguard your own fun. Hey guys, it's cool that you're getting into an argument, but I'd like to play some games. Settle it. Settle it, or I'll settle it. It's okay to just say, hey, me as a human, I'm kind of bored here. I know there's this very prominent idea that the GM is this arbiter of fun. And it's true, GM skills are important. They're important to making the night fun. If GM skills weren't important to making the night fun, I wouldn't be here talking to you about GM skills. There wouldn't be all these podcasts and YouTube stations and all this stuff about how to GM. If it was easy, there wouldn't be all that stuff about it. So and if it was easy, people who have been doing it for decades wouldn't have a little bit of anxiety right before a game started. So yes, GM technique, being good, is part of the fun. But the secret sauce is the real fun, the best fun, happens when the GM and all the players and the game mechanics are all working to make things fun. They're all working together. Not towards one specific narrow goal. Don't get it twisted. Doesn't have to be narrow, but they've got to be working together. You know, I don't want to have to swim against the current of my game system. It's tiring. I can do it. I've done it. I did it for decades. It's exhausting. And it meant I had to develop these weird GM muscles in weird places. And you can see it. You can see it when someone starts a new game and the game mechanics have something that allow the group to do something very easily that the GM has developed all of these ways to deal with on their own. And suddenly like, oh, this game makes me uncomfortable. It could be that you just don't like the game. I dig that. I'm not going to take that away from you. But is it that you don't like the game, or is it that you've developed these very intense set of skills to get over things that weren't games that you've had haven't been doing for you? Okay? Something to think about. But let's get back to the topic at hand. GMing during character creation. It doesn't have to be a passive thing. Make whatever you want. We'll just go. You can do a little bit of work during character creation that will save you a lot of work later. A lot of work. You know? And I've saved myself a lot of work by just saying to someone, hey man, you're making a badass faceless ninja. You know, is that really what you want to play? If that's what you want to play, cool, play the badass faceless ninja. But you're playing like that guy who goes into the tavern, doesn't talk to anybody, sits with his back to the wall with a hand on his dagger. And that's okay, but I don't know really what he cares about. And it's not that I need a full, huge backstory. I just want to make sure that that's what you want. Or if that's just what you make when you're making something and you're not sure where to go. Because sometimes that's the case. Sometimes folks are making things out of old habit. They're not sure what they want. So they just go back to where they're comfortable. Faceless ninja, back to the wall, hand on my dagger. And that's cool. Tell me something that's a little different about him. Tell me something about this person about the faceless ninja that they wouldn't expect. Oh, well, I write poetry and send it to my buddy who's also a faceless ninja. We went through Faceless Ninja school together. We send each other poems about what we're going through. Usually they're about the seasons. About once a season, I send one off to him. Oh, okay. That's interesting. What have we got? We got something a little artistic about this person. We got the idea that there's a ninja school. And there are other students, people you have relationships with. And it's not that I need a full family tree relationship map for every character. I don't. I just want something to latch onto for the beginning, for the start. And another viable answer is, hey, you know what? I don't know yet, but I'm going to be looking for that while we play. I'm not sure. Let's play to find out what's different about this guy. He might not even know yet. He might have, the world turned this person cold. He's looking for that. Cool. Okay, let's find it out. Let's figure it out and play. That's a great answer. Love that answer. Love it to bits. You got this faceless ninja. I don't know. Yeah, we're going to find out this person's humanity or lack thereof through play. Okay. All right. Now you're talking. Now you are talking, sir. That's a fine time to figure out all the character history. I don't want, as the GM during character creation, I'm not saying prompt them to come up with this character history. I'm saying prompt them to have something so that they have some momentum as they get into play. They have some feeling for the character. Something. Little something. I've got a scarred eyebrow. How'd you get the scar? I'm not sure yet. All right, we'll figure that out. Write that down. A scarred eyebrow. It's okay to want to figure that stuff out and play. And sometimes you got to ask somebody to scale it back, right? Hey, I wrote this novel. Whoa, Chief. Scale it back. Pick your favorite 3 sentences, 2 sentences, 1 sentence. That's the character. The rest we can uncover. Because sometimes you gotta pump the brakes. Gotta pump the brakes. There's a cautionary tale out there in the internets that I learned back in RPG.net days. When RPG.net was like Deadwood. It was vicious. Vicious, I tell you. Where was Al Swearingen? And he was there, believe me. And sometimes I was Al Swearingen. I'm not proud of that. So back in those days, there was a cautionary tale that folks who created too much history were doing it because very often they were playing games where the games were getting canceled before they got enough play. So they were writing what they wanted from the play and weren't getting because they were frustrated. So watch for that. Because what will happen when someone writes a novella about their character, not only is that stuff that's never going to happen at the table, but it can make other players feel like, is that what I should have done? Am I doing this wrong? No, you're not doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. Sometimes you got to ask people to pump the brakes. And if everybody wants to write a novella, if you got a bunch of writers who all want to write novellas before the first game, God bless. God bless. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying it's something it could be a symptom of something else. Could be a symptom that you got a bunch of budding writers at the table. Could be a symptom that you have some frustrated players or trying to work through some stuff. Does that make sense? All right. If you have any instances of being the GM during character creation that you want to talk about, and I could talk about this for Burning Wheel, this is like a whole other segment, so I didn't go into that. Creating a situation and having everyone link to the situation, I specifically didn't go into that. So if you're here and you're like, oh, Jed's talking about character creation, he's going to talk about situation and Burning Wheel. I'll put a link to that. But no, I'm not going to talk about that at the moment. That's a whole different can of worms. But if you have a situation, if you have a memory of being the GM or having a good GM do something during character creation that really improved your play, or you remember some kind of character creation story, let me know. Drop me a line. And I'll have more about how to drop me a line after we get done with the Inspiration Goat. Inspiration Goat, Bleat at me. Good one, Inspiration Goat. The goat has brought me Star Trek Discovery, which I am loving. I'm really enjoying. And I hope you get to see it. I hope you can grab it when it's not behind a paywall. What is it about it? Let's talk about the things I like about it, and I'll get to the things specifically that I want to talk about gaming. I like how it embeds itself into the Star Trek lore we know while forging new ground. That's cool. And I think there is a gaming lesson to be learned there about playing in established worlds and well-known properties. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I like how it's diverse. I like how the crew, the bridge is this diverse place. Reminds me of the 7 Train in Queens. Love it. Love, love, love it. That's great. I mean, it's one of the few science fiction shows I can remember where there are episodes where 2 women of color are on a mission talking, right? Problem solving. Love it. So the diversity is great. Again, I could talk about that. I feel like there are other people who are talking about that in different spaces a bit better than I am. I will provide a link to Mendez's Patreon. He's doing really cool work in that area. What I want to talk about is how it uses scientific curiosity to bring about adventure as a kind of a trigger. And I love that. And I don't mean in a humans grasp too far and what have they done? They've made a monstrosity way. Yeah, I understand the Frankenstein stuff is cool, but that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, there's a problem. Something's gone wrong. We need to solve it. And we're going to solve it with scientific curiosity. Or even there's an anomaly. Let's study it and let's look at it. And in looking at it, it will be adventurous. I feel like the show does that really well in every episode. We get to solve problems in cool ways and show science. And even if it's science fiction, hokey science, that's totally cool for me, right? I don't think Star Trek is not about realism. In the original Trek, there was a planet full of Prohibition era gangsters, right? Star Trek is not about realism. Star Trek is about cool stuff in space and traveling that infinity and figuring out what it means to be human and doing that. And I love that. I love seeing it. I love how this show does it. And I like thinking about how I can use that in my gaming. I've seen it a bit in Stars Without Number, right? Because the players can have skills that are scientific in nature. And when they have skills that are scientific, it causes them to think about what they could study. And when they are thinking about what they could study, because science is about making sense of the world around us, it causes them to be curious about the world around them. And that's cool. And I'm interested in the way a skill about analyzing maybe data that you found, or a skill that is about working in a lab might be better at doing curiosity than a lore role, right? It's better than just, what do you know? Because I feel like what the science skills can do is they can say, here's what you know, what do you do with it? What patterns can you find with it? And that is cool. Suddenly we're cooking with gas. And as a GM, you can really feed them cool stuff. You can say, you look at this data and you're finding that you look at the spread of alien artifacts across this planet that have been found in different dig sites, and you find a pattern, and you see where other sites might be. That's good stuff. It's like, hey, listen, boop, 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 adventure. I got adventure for you. I got an archaeological alien site. Go get it. Go find it. Go discover something. And I think that can be used in the fantasy world too. I think it could be a cool question to ask your players about their characters. What about the world interests them? What is it that they're curious about? Right? What have they brushed up against and they think is interesting? Maybe one character is like, I really want to know what the stars really are. My parents told me that my parents and my priest told me that it was our ancestors looking down on us, and that just rang hollow to me. I want to know what it is. The goblins think that it's the eyes of the capricious elf deities staring down at them in disapproval. I want to know what everybody thinks. And that's kind of a cool thing. When the player goes to different cultures, he has something to talk to them about. He has something to explore. Maybe there is like a truth to everything. If all of the myths are about how the stars are something looking down on you and rendering judgment or guidance, maybe that means something. Maybe there is some intelligence and guidance out there in the stars. It's kind of a neat thing. So I just want you to think about that, about how a scientific mindset can help your adventure by encouraging players to be curious about the setting because their characters are. Right? It causes the players to be looking around at the setting and be like, what can I study? And how can I study it? And that is cool. And Star Trek Discovery definitely does that. And the phasers come out and there's action and there's flying around and put the shields up and code red and all that good stuff too. But I like how the science gets us there as the bridge. So, good stuff. Let me know how science and curiosity has worked out in your games. And I look forward to hearing more about it, about how that's worked for you. Drop me an email at judd.karlman@gmail.com. Or you can tweet it at me. Or Mastodon. Or you can get on the Anchor app and drop me a line through, send me an MP3, or, right through the Anchor app, you can just hit comment and send me a minute comment, or send me a couple different minute comments for the Wednesday Reply Show. Okay, folks? Looking forward to hearing from you. Have a good week.